I figured, I found that and I thought, I was going to be preaching from Romans 12 too. That would be more fun than me just reading it. Counterculture. Going against the flow. Romans 12:2 basically says, do not conform. You want to read this with me? You can do this. I think you can see that. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and prove what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. God's not hiding His will from us. I think we're just not in position to get it. Guys, this is our kids. I am intentionally, in between Mother's Day and Father's Day, really making the application to the family. Because I believe the family is the basic building block that God created to build a culture, to build a community, to build a nation, to build a state, whatever size of the entity is that you're thinking of. The family is the basic unit. And I'm going to ask somebody, Larry, if you could. There's light reflecting off a truck right through that window, and all of you look like you've got leprosy or chicken pox or something. Because this blind, thank you, sir. That's good. That got it right there. Mm-hmm. This is our kids. Our kids are, I know it's swimming this way, but they're really swimming upstream. The world is changed. We must prepare our children to live in a world that no longer respects Jesus Christ. We live in a post-Christian America. Now, we have this on the back of we have the notes on the back of your bulletin this morning. I don't want to see nobody has to raise hands, but I hope that you took time to do the family inventory that we sent home last week. This is another good sheet for you to sit down and pray over and think over as we go through this series of spiritual warfare, especially how it relates to the family. But have you understood this yet? That our world no longer respects Jesus Christ. Have you got that? Did you know that more Christians are being martyred today than ever before in history? Ever before in history. In this country, it's our children really pay a high price if they're vocal with their faith at all. Because it's post-Christian, it's past Christian. Matter of fact, you could almost probably, and it would still work in that blank on your sheet, to say we live in an anti-Christian America. How many of you ever seen somebody take Muhammad's name in vain in a movie? Anybody? Do you wonder why it's always Jesus? That's the reason, Steve. That's the reason. There's no spiritual warfare going on in the Muslim world. Matter of fact, Satan loves that. And he wants that to thrive. One time Cindy and I were watching a show of late that if I could count the times how many people prayed to Jesus in that movie, so many people called out to Jesus in that movie. But they weren't calling out to Jesus, were they? They were using His name as a curse word. I said, they just prayed again, Cindy. Look at that. Calling out to Christ. No, they're not calling out to Christ. We experience spiritual warfare on 3 levels: personal, relational, and cultural. Now, I have read so many books on spiritual warfare. Betty gave me a good one. Betty, I still have your book, by the way. It may have been a year ago now that you gave me that book, but I still look at it and I give reference to it. I just got another book on spiritual warfare written by a gentleman named Dean Sherman. And Dean Sherman is the spiritual warfare teacher, if you will, for YWAM, Youth with a Mission. Tells some tremendous stories about how spiritual warfare is evident throughout the world. And everybody takes their explanation of the spirit world and spiritual warfare. They have their own, they get it from Scripture, but the outlines are all different. But this is the way I see it. The way I see it is that spiritual warfare is personal. It relates to you as an individual. It relates to you relational in your relationships, and it relates to you cultural in the sense that there are territorial spirits. The spirits that are involved on the personal level are more spirits, I don't think necessarily evil spirits necessarily assigned to you in particular as they're assigned to particular strongholds that you might be experiencing. The relational ones, oh my goodness, I believe that the bombardment really starts there. And then cultural, you do have territorial powers. And isn't it interesting how you can be standing in between two countries and one country be totally different spiritually than the other one? And it's something how you can be standing in a community and between communities, and the spiritual warfare in one community is different than the spiritual warfare in another community. It's interesting what can happen here. So there's all kinds of ways that you can talk about this, and over the next few weeks I'm probably going to be mentioning it in many different ways. But I want us to be thinking today of personal, relational, and cultural. Personally speaking, the open doors, if you will, or the battlefields of the personal spiritual warfare that we have are your heart, your mind, your flesh, which are strongholds, your eyes, and your mouth. You know, your heart. You know, sometimes I wonder, where are our hearts? Let me tell you how you can tell where your heart is. Seriously, just look where you are during the week, because your feet will take you where your heart wants to go. Just know that. Look at what you see. What you allow to be seen in your life is what your heart feels good with or feels comfortable with. The heart is huge in this. So is the mind. As the man thinks, therefore he is. You know, your mind is the gateway to your heart. And so the mind is where a lot of ideas get put in our heads. We don't understand the messaging, the messages that's in everything that we see and do. Everything that we see and do. We don't understand. Listen to what I'm saying. It could be trillions now. But the world is spending hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars to get your children's attention. And it's by purpose, it's by design. Or, you know, or advertising. If advertising didn't work, they wouldn't do it. You see, the idea isn't to get you to go buy something the minute you see an ad. Now, some commercials kind of lead that way. They kind of say, you know, how many minutes can you save $300 on your insurance? 15. And well, yeah, but that's the wrong company. And Gary, that's about 1970, so, you know. No. So to save 15 minutes, in 15 minutes you can save $300, what company is that? Okay, why do you know that? Because it is the best. Why is it the best? Because they say it is. And it's all over the place. Look, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a good image with their product. It's called branding. And that's the reason why you're more apt at times to go to a brand name product than to the store product. I did that just yesterday. Yeah, Saturday was yesterday. Sometimes my days get run together. Saturday I went to get, you know, we're about to get wasp again, you know, the little, I don't know if they're wasp or they're big yellow jackets. We either had the biggest yellow jackets I've ever seen or the wasp look like yellow jackets one. I don't know. But you need to get by a can. You know, does anybody know the brand name? It's Spectrum. It's, well, Raid. Does Raid sell that too? But Raid is the ants and the bugs. But it's Spectrum. There was a store brand next to it for about 50 cents cheaper. And you know what I did? I bought the brand name. Why? Because I've used that before, and I know it'll shoot them 30 feet away because I've done it with it. You know, but yet even if I didn't have the experience, we have a tendency to go toward the brand. That's because advertising works. It works. Why do Ford people hate Chevy people? And why do Chevy people hate Ford people? I've met people like that. And they both swear by their trucks. And then you got the Rams, the Dodge Rams. And they don't like either two of the others because that's the little one against the big guys, Those Cummins engines, everybody's got, well, they're all good stuff, but anyway, I'm trying to help you understand that there's a lot of spiritual warfare going on in your mind and in your flesh with the strongholds. Let me tell you something. It's hard to give up a stronghold. It is. Let me tell you what. Satan would never tempt me with a cigarette. Ever. Matter of fact, I can stand here before you, and I can tell you right now that cigarettes are as defeated as it can be with me. That would be stupid, but I know some people why is it with some people smoking is the hardest thing in the world to give up? It's a stronghold. And we all don't share the same strongholds. Oh, I gave in. I became my own sermon illustration last night. I gave in. You ever give in, Violet? You ever given in to anything? I've given peanut butter. I gave in to peanut butter. I've been losing weight. Now, when I say losing weight, you need to understand that I lost some weight last year. I put 10 pounds of it back on this winter. Now, when I say I'm losing weight, I'm losing weight off the high mark. That's how you always gauge it. Now, one time in my life, I weighed 330 pounds. Man, I've lost 50 pounds, but I've gained 20 of it back. But boy, I lost it back there, But peanut butter, that's what Satan's going to get. I mean, I'm big on wanting to get peanut butter. But I didn't get ice cream. That's how you say it. Yeah, but I didn't get ice cream. Oh, but you should have seen what I didn't get. See how much I did not eat? Look at this. In your eyes. Your eyes catch things. I've noticed something about Ellie. You know how much you forget about babies between children and grandchildren? Oh, by the way, Jim told me that he and Marion just discovered they're going to be a great-grandparent. Again, number 5. And they discovered the sex of the baby. They shot a jar. A guy shot a jar, and whatever powder popped out of it was going to be the baby's sex. Wow. And he didn't know what it was, so he shot the jar and pink came out. So it was, you got to remember that, Derek. That's pretty good. But we're so visual. Do you think we're more visual today than said we were 100 years ago? Oh my goodness, visual. That's the reason we put this stuff up here, I don't know how Jesus taught without PowerPoint. I don't know why anybody ever listened to him, and we're always using videos. I just did a little clip up here, because we're very visual. Very visual. And then my mouth. Anybody ever says something and wish you could catch the word? Come back here. Oh boy, have I done that. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will kill me. I mean, that'll just destroy me. Yeah, words mean things. They really do. So, anybody here experiencing personal spiritual warfare? It happens. Now, next week, I'm going to stop right here because next week, I'm going to talk to you about I really think it is the reason or Satan's goal for temptation. Come back next week. I'm not going to tell you this week. Secondly is relational. Your family in particular. Satan hates strong families. Hates family. Up here, if you've been with me long, you know that that's the hierarchy of relationships that we teach around here, that God puts relationships, that God is always first. Yourself is second because Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. You'll never be able to love anybody any more than you love yourself. You'll never allow anybody to love you any more than you feel you're worthy of love. And that's not a selfish Arthur Fonzarelli self, like you look in the mirror. Like, hey, you know. Anybody not get the Arthur Fonzarelli? Everybody got the? Okay, I'm telling my age here, I guess. But a healthy self is important. If this is for marriage, now this is for people that are married. I'm making these applications to family, to spouse, your children. And and then there's your support group and your parents. Your parents never go away. There's not an expiration date on honor your father and mother. They just have a different place in your life once you get married. But they're still very important. Whether all the way down to 6, no, these 7 are real tight and they're real close and they're all important or they wouldn't have made the list. And your work, your career and job, yes, you have a relationship with your job. And remember last week, I got to bring this up again. The idea here is not to learn how to balance your life, balance your family and church and balance this. No, what you do is you get rid of trying to balance everything and you start asking God, what is essential? That's the right question. This is the reason why, if you didn't have time to do that family evaluation sheet last week, take time to do it. Because what you're going to do is, I can tell you what's going to happen, is you're going to take the things that you put as important and get rid of this list. Now, I'm not talking about this list. I'm talking about last week's list. I just need to say this again. You're going to take family, church, activities, work, and then you're going to put everything on the list and you're going to order them to see which one we need, but you're never going to drop them off. You're never going to drop off the bottom ones. You're just going to put them toward the middle or toward the end. And then what's going to happen? They're going to end up, those things that you've been given priority to, that you shouldn't be given priority to, are going to work their way back up. You got to get rid of them. You got to get rid of them. You've got to set priorities based on what the Scripture says is essential, and what have we been saying is the only thing that's essential. If I remember, boy, this is telling me how much I can teach. The gospel. The gospel, the person of the Lord Jesus, that's what the gospel is. The gospel is the person of Christ. And the gospel is the story of Christ. The gospel is the real, true account of Christ and how Christ was in heaven, came to earth and died, buried, rose again, and has come to save and is coming again. That's the gospel. That if you can take everything in your family and say, is this essential to the gospel? And if it's not essential to the gospel, you stop it. Now, we've also learned how certain things don't need to be off your list. They just need to be made essential to the gospel. I'm re-preaching some stuff for those of you that have been here. But I'm telling you up here is that you cannot get these relationships up here out of order. You're going to experience so much spiritual warfare on this level. Because what's going to happen is that your relationship with your spouse is going to go south. You're going to start pouring your heart and your life into a specific child, and the child's going to be raised up above your spouse. And if you've got 2 or 3 kids, the spouse will find another child and begin to make that child their number one. And then before you know it, you actually have 2 teams in the family. The very best thing that you can do for your children, if you're a husband, is to love their mother. The very, very best thing you can do for your children, if you're a wife, is to love their daddy. And yes, that love for husband and wife is greater than love for children for that reason. Because anything else that you let on that list or even off that list come between you and your spouse, you're banking on danger coming into your family. I do things sometimes just because Cindy wants me to do them. I don't do some things sometimes simply because she doesn't want me to do them. She and I have a relationship with a lady that's our friend back in Georgia. One time, because she was also the Sunday school superintendent for our church, she wanted to sit down and talk about Sunday school and invited me to lunch to talk Sunday school. Well, we taught Sunday school, and then Cindy asked me, Gary, don't do that anymore. She knows nothing is going to go on. She knows nothing is going to happen. But you know what? I have never had lunch with that woman ever again. Why? Because it made my wife uncomfortable. I let nothing come between me and my wife. Not even our children. Our children do not come between me and my wife. That's best for them. And then what are they learning? They're learning how to model family. And when they get to have a family. Guys, I could spend an eternity on this list. Sometimes relationship with the entire family goes down. We pour ourselves in our work, career, and our job, and it becomes number one. See, normally we're thinking of spiritual warfare as all the time thinking about casting out demons and spirits and naming spirits. No. Let me tell you, spiritual warfare, Satan, I'm not going to do this because I'm going to preach this next week. But he so desperately wants you to get these relationships out of order because he knows that if you can master the ability to build strong relationships, you're going to be a healthy person. Let's move on. I got to move on. We'll talk more about this next week. Cultural. Guys, as we said earlier, we live in a post-Christian nation. Can you ever believe your phone is what your phone is to you now? I never really thought I would put a phone on a spiritual warfare list. You know what? I think I may have forgotten to turn mine down. It could interrupt me any minute. Yep, I did. You know, but this thing right here is the cause of so much of your problems. Right here. Right here. This thing. And it can be tied to social media. My goodness. Anybody here see the Coeur d'Alene Press online? Nobody? I do. That's how I get it. I get it online. Used to, they would have at the end of every article that allow people to come in their own system, to come in anonymously and make comments, and it'd be so nasty. They don't do that anymore. I'm so thrilled. Because it had its own little dysfunctional family that always posted in the CDA Press. Now, fortunately, the press has the CDA Press. They have control over their world, and and what they did is they just took those off. Now, you can still post, but you have to use your real name. Isn't it funny how you can use your real name all of a sudden the posts get cleaner? They're more cordial. Isn't it funny that when you put some guidelines on the social media, it actually can become a pretty good thing? But can you do that in the real world? No. Matter of fact, social media is and it's just the idea that it's constantly with us. And I'll talk more about that in a second. Our finances, and here's what I mean by finances. You know, I don't think that we have less money a lot of times than what we need. I think we need to go back, we need to evaluate on what we're spending it on. Because it's not always what you have, it's what you do with it. I teach people the 10-20-70 plan. 10% tithe, 20% put up for the future that God has for you, and you live on 70%. And I'm telling you, for 80% of the people, you can do that. And you may not be able to do it overnight because we're used to living on 120% of our income. You may not be able to do that overnight, but if you can, I'm telling you, finances is what Satan uses to keep us in prison. Finances aren't evil. Is money evil? What is evil? The root of all evil is what? The love of money. Yeah. And then that next one, to conform. If you know, for a culture that's promoting so much individualism, you sure have to conform to a certain set of ideas before you're accepted anymore. And then, yeah, you can marry yourself now. That's true. Suicide. Guys, y'all ready for this? Every year since they've been taking records, Idaho's been in the top 10% of states in suicide. Most of the suicides come from North Idaho. Did you know that in 2015, there were 63 suicides in North Idaho? Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen 2017's not over yet, so I don't know what those numbers are going to be. But suicide is a huge problem up here. I'm going to move on because basically here's the point. There's no rest for your mind or soul anymore. You used to be able to turn it off. There were only 3 channels. There were only one phone, and it hung in the middle of the room, in the middle of the living room. Your parents might say to me, you can make one, how many minutes? 5? No. I got man, my parents were good. I thought they were bad. Mine was 15 minutes. I could do a 15-minute phone call to one friend. And then what did I do in the afternoons when I was growing up? I played outside. I played with rocks. There was a little creek ran behind the house. So I dammed it up. I fished for crawfish. You do it real easy with a little fish. I did with a fishing line about this big with a hook on the end, and I put a ball of bread on it. And there's a big tree. We called it Bent Tree. It bends over the creek. You go under creek. A crick is in your neck. I know, I'm going to get in trouble. I know. I don't care. Daniel Boone was a Yankee then. Anyway, you dangle it down there, and the crawfish come out from under the banks and the rocks and everything, and they grab it, and you hook them, and you pull them up, and you take them off, and you know. But there's no rest for the mind or the soul now. We're in front of some type of electronics all the time, something that's causing our mind to go. Do you know what? I have to make myself do this, but you notice I sip on coffee. Does anybody like just this? I'm promising you, this thing's about this full. I sip on it. I do like this. And I get just a sip and I set it down. I can sip on that literally all day long. Now, what's bad about that? I'll tell you what's bad about that. What's bad about that is it keeps your digestive system, your spleen and everything stimulated. And you're keeping your system in constant stimulation. There's no rest for your system. It never gets to be still. Because I'm an idiot. Because it's not cigarettes, yeah. No, here's what I do. I will sip this in the morning, and I stop in the morning, and I start doing water, and then at night I do fizzy water. That's what is it really called? It's sparkling water. And I've done the research, carbonation isn't bad for you. It's the chemicals in the carbonation that's bad for you. Just clean, I just like the fizzy. And Cindy can tell you, I will go to Winco. They have it for 88 cents. You can get a 2-liter bottle of fizzy. And I'll sip on that. But why did I start doing it? Because I got to create rest. Guys, right now there's no rest for our minds. Our minds are not designed to stay engaged all the time. Our minds are not, always looking, always. Man, every time you look at somebody, they're doing this on their phone. What are they doing? Scrolling what? Facebook. Larry, emails are okay for you. Emails. Email is out. It's Facebook. If I send an email to somebody, I've got to Facebook them to tell them I did. Or text them and tell them I just sent you an email. Yeah, did you get that? Did you see that? Well, wait a minute, I remember my password to my email. Wait a minute. But there's no rest in this culture. Guys, the Time magazine, anybody get a chance to read the Time magazine article I put out on Facebook? Let me tell you, was it interesting or not? Teens are in a cauldron of stimulus they can't get away from, or they don't want to get away from, or they don't know how to get away from. Oh, we're getting to them in just a minute. Yeah. This is another quote by the same lady. She's a researcher right here, Janice Whitlock. Okay? In my dozens of conversations with teens, parents, clinicians, and school counselors across the country, there was a persuasive sense that being a teenager today is a draining, full-time job. Their lives include doing, and teenagers, talk to me, my life includes schoolwork, managing a social media identity, and fretting about career, climate change, sexism, and racism. You name it. Do you know kids are constantly in a crisis? They are constantly in a crisis. Every fight or slight is documented online for hours or days after the incident. It's exhausting. Our children are not exempt. They're not. One doctor from Montana of all places, that was quoted in this article, the environment that children and teens find themselves in today contributes to a rise in mental health issues and particularly self-harming. Well, or suicide, and the preferred method of self-harming is cutting with a razor. Okay, there's reasons why. I've read so many articles on the reasons why kids cut. It seems to remind them that they're real. The pain, they need to feel something. It enables them to feel something. Basically, according to this doctor, our children and teens are overexposed no matter where they live, even in a sparsely populated state like Montana and even North Idaho. Folks, basically this is, if you got a kid committed suicide in New York, they hear about it. If you got a person that they feel like is being abused in Arizona, they hear about it in North Idaho. In other words, there's when I was a kid, I didn't know anything that was going on in New York. I didn't know anything that's going on with kids in California. I didn't know anything. I wasn't even able to talk to my friends except at school. And I lived in a time of just glorious, blissful ignorance, where I just didn't know anything. And and when I was little, do you know what all I had to go through to get pornography? When I was a young man, you know what? You had to put your reputation on the line. You had to go buy that stuff. You had to stand in line and everybody saw you. I mean, it was a horrible thing. You know what you have to do now to find pornography? Is this phone thing I was telling you about. If you're wondering, Ellie's on my wallpaper. Now I'm going to have two of them. Got to get a picture of two of them and put them on there. Guys, there's a war being waged for the minds and hearts and very souls of our children. Please understand that. And parents, you can be blinded. Church, we can be blinded to it. We can just go on. But let me tell you this. And you, if you're a parent with a young child, I can say you because I don't have a young child anymore. My child is having young children. But listen, if you have children, you cannot raise them the same way you were raised. And that's bad. Let me tell you why. Because the way you were raised is all you know. You're going to have to learn a new way. See, parents, you're going to have to change before your child changes. And a lot of the changes that you're going to have to make in your life is going to run counter to the way other parents are raising their kids. The way you've got to do things and change is going to be counter to the way your child knows that their friends are being raised. Well, Bobby gets to do that. Sally has a phone. Why can't I go over there? Everybody else is doing that. You know, it used to be that you could say that to your child, no, you're not going, and they weren't going. But now they're not going, but they keep up with it on the phone. They're not there, but you post everything on the phone when you're young. But there's a war being waged, and we got to fight it differently. Can I give you a battle plan? Let your or our children be our motivation. Here's what I mean. If you can't find it within yourself to get up in the morning and start the morning with a time of prayer, for yourself. Do it for your children's sake. Because you, and I've heard it said so many times, yeah, but I'm not a morning person. It's my best time of day is in the afternoon. I'm not saying do a full-fledged Bible study in the morning. I'm not saying take 3 hours the first part of the day. What I'm trying to say is if you wait until the evening before you talk to God, asking Him to bless your daily meal is over. Help me make it through the day is late. What do you need me to do with my children today doesn't apply. If you've got a family at home, and if you're having a difficult time saying that I think I need this, well, let me tell you, your children need it. You do too, but your children need it. And it's not that you're doing it just privately either. Your children need to know you do it. And your children need to see you. They need to catch you doing something right. They need to see you coming out of your prayer closet. They need to come to you to interrupt you and you're in your prayer closet. They may need to have a conversation with you and they need to interrupt your Bible reading. And if you can't do it for you, do it for them. Parents, I dare you to go home and ask your children, what is the number one thing you need from me? And do it or stop it, whatever. Secondly, become the person. We need to become the person we want our children to become. Guys, your kids are copying somebody. You might not have saw it in the video when it first started playing, because it came on very early in that video when we were transitioning from music to preaching. But up here it said, your kids are copying somebody. Every man with a daughter, listen up. If you don't hug your daughter, somebody will. If you don't pay attention to your children, somebody will. If you don't sit there and listen to them and what they need, somebody will. Because they're copying somebody. Well, I don't know if I believe in this mentoring stuff. Everybody's being mentored, guys. Everybody's becoming like someone. We need to learn the spiritual art, the discipline of mentoring. I call it worth it work. This is worth it work. This is very much worth it. But I'm telling you, it's going to be hard. Do you know why it's going to be hard for you to mentor your children? Because you weren't mentored. Anything that's healthy and that helps build relationships, most of us did not get when we were children. Because they didn't get it. When your parents didn't get it when they were children. Your grandparents didn't get it when they were children. It's just a generational curse that's passed down and passed down and passed down and passed down, that you put everything else above family, and if somehow you work hard, even volunteering to help other families, but you don't help your own. I want to tell you a tale of two barbers. There's a barber that cut my hair, and there was his brother that had the chair right next to him. I'll just tell you, if it's not Louis Gregory, but Louis cut my hair for years. He did. Cut my hair. He had a brother in the chair right next to him. Louis owned the barber shop. His brother rented out the chair. I think that's how you would do that. I think that's a way you can do that. Louis would be dogmatic about the price of his haircut. I forgot what it was, but it was one of the higher prices you would pay in town, but he was good. And his brother would even give away haircuts. I noticed the line was always bigger for Louis's brothers than for Louis. That's because at times Louis was giving away haircuts to his friends. Louis, my barber, because and I asked him, I said, man, your brother always seems, he says, Gary, just between me and you, he gives everything away to a lot of people, but his family's starving. Listen carefully. Oh, everybody likes my brother. My brother's the coolest guy in town. But he's sacrificing his family. He says, I'm not going to budge a dime. I don't care how much I like you, because I want God told me to take care of my family. And what's so strange, everybody liked his brother, but Lewis is the one that had the money to retire. Lewis was the one that had the money. You wouldn't believe what he was able to afford on his salary. That you ever been to Lewis and there? Man, it was a nice little house. It wasn't a mansion, but it was a nice house. His family had great kids. We know their kids. And their family was tight. I'm telling you, folks, we sacrifice our families for a lot of things. Go home and do your little sheet that you went home with last week. Figure out what's standing between me and my family. And if anything is getting in the way of you and your family coming together, get rid of it. You see, learn the discipline of building relationships, because it's worth the work. Guys, if relationships were easy, we would all have good ones, wouldn't we? Do you know why? Perhaps maybe you've had some bad relationships. Maybe you're not that good at it. Don't come back to me on that. I'm only stating what you might need to say is obvious. This is the reason you need a mentor. You need a mentor to look at you and go, you don't know how to have a good relationship. See, without a mentor, you wouldn't know that. If I didn't put my job on the line as a pastor, you wouldn't know that. Because when you're mentoring somebody, when you're in a relationship with them, you tell them what they need to hear sometimes, not what they want to hear. And we all need that. We all need people speaking into our lives. Mentoring, here's the little definition I've come up with mentoring. Mentoring is learning to live in a relationship with Christ by living in a relationship with someone who is living in a relationship with Christ. If you're looking to be a better husband, okay, you're wanting to live in a relationship with somebody who's living in a good relationship with their wife. If you're wanting to, well, doesn't it make sense, Sophie? If you want to learn, if you want to make straight A's, then you want to study with someone that's failing, right? And copy them, right? No? If you want to make straight A's, who do you hang out with? Oh, yes. Straight A students. Guys, listen. This is really pretty simple. I have got to get my family in order. Where's me a family? Where can I find one that looks in order? And let me go ask that guy how he makes it work. Yeah. Guys, we stink at personal relationships. I never put stink on an outline for a message before. But we do. We stink at it. Mentoring is mastering relationships. Paul said, and I'm taking a couple of quotes out of 1 Thessalonians 2, 7 through 11. Paul says, we were gentle among you, just as a mother cares for her own children. We dealt with each of you as a father deals with his own child. We shared the gospel and our own lives with you. There's a common word in each of those sentences. Can anybody find the common word? We is one. Use one. No, not in all three. Okay, yeah. There's one that you're missing. That's that I think own. The reason I know there are others are there too, but the reason I pulled that one out We were that is a word of real possession. We were gentle among you just as a mother cares for her own children. He could have said children, cares for her children, right? But he put that, would that be an adjective? He put her own children. We dealt with you as a father deals with his own children. We shared not the gospel with you, not only that we shared the gospel and our own lives. That's the emphasis word. You see, you became imitators of us, Paul said, then of the Lord. Here it is again. Become the person you want them to become. All right, everybody that's a father here, that's ever fathered a child, that's ever been a father, I want you to listen carefully. The easiest thing you'll ever do in the process of having children is make it. The toughest thing you'll ever do as a father is to become the person that you want that child that you made to become. That will be the toughest thing you ever do. Remember, I'm saying it backwards. Don't do as I do, do as I say. That don't get it. Monkey see. There you go. Remember, they're copying someone. There's that phrase again. They're copying someone. They're becoming like someone. Put yourself in their path. The fourth part of the battle plan is let's become a real kingdom community. Let's become family first this summer at home and at church. You ever think of your church? Don't think of your home as your castle. Isn't that normally what we do? Think of your home as a kingdom community. Think of your church as a kingdom community. We're going to be participating in these activities this summer, and it's all for a reason. Prayer walking, park parties, frisbee, mentoring through hiking, fishing, and camping. We're going to be doing all that this summer. Why? Because mentoring is living together, not just having church. First, we're going to do some prayer walking. What you're going to be seeing very soon is a date where we're all going to go down to the park at Coeur d'Alene. And we're going to prayer walk the park and the surrounding communities. Why down there? Because secondly, we're going to be doing some outdoor gospel presentations. I had the most fun that I've had, and I don't know when, Monday at Eastern Washington University. Where did Ron go? Ron Wiesemeyer some time ago, just after Moses, he was a part of an organization called Open Air Campaigners for 11 years. For 11 years, and what they do is you see some of that up on the screen. You see that one, solve this riddle? That wasn't the riddle, but what I saw happening on basically the common area at Eastern Washington University, I wanted to see this group because, to be honest with you, I didn't know what to think, because you're going to stand out in the middle of a public square, and you're going to preach the gospel. And I'll be honest with you, there's a part of me that's always thought that to be kind of, I don't know, anybody like me? You just didn't see yourself as getting out in the middle of the street and preaching. And I mean, I'm just telling you yeah. Well, let me tell you what, I found out how easy it was. Let me tell you what I saw. They had a big whiteboard like that one, like you see on the top three. And one of them was solve this riddle. And in between classes, that place was just inundated with kids with backpacks. And Ron looked at me and said, what did we do with our books? He said, we carried them like this. Then you had to carry your girlfriends, and then it was really rough. And you're not going to believe how many of those college students stopped to solve the riddle. Sometimes 10, 15, 20, 30 at a time would stop, and there were 4 parts to the riddle. And they did this on their own volition. I mean, they came and they stopped. Nobody dressed them down. Nobody preached to them. Nobody did it. I mean, it was amazing to me how they just stopped. And then each part of the riddle told a story. All you have to do is watch it once or twice and you got it down. You could do this. And so they were, and then the last part of it is when you make the transition into the gospel. Now, some of them walked away at that point. Some of them had to go to class at some point. But I was amazed. They just simply just shared the gospel. Just talked about Jesus. And then, anybody got any questions, please stay. And I would say 85% of them left. But usually 2, 3, 4, 5 stood around. And they got a chance to share Jesus. And they didn't hunt down one person. They didn't tackle one person. They didn't ask anybody to stand around to do something against their will. They didn't say, I need to talk to you. Hey, Jesus loves you today. You're going to hell. You know, there wasn't any of that. And all they did was solve this riddle. And I was amazed about how many people just stopped. And even when they got down to the gospel, they sat there and listened to the entire gospel message. Some of them walked away, but all of them said, thank you. There was nobody rebutting it. There was nobody... Did you see any arguments? I didn't see any arguments. And so after a while, so many were stopping that they were so busy talking to people, and I just said, hey, come here, solve this riddle. I just started. And I had a crowd of them, and I just saw this 15, 20 minutes ago. And the riddle, and the kids were amazed by the riddles. Then I got down to the gospel and started sharing it with them. And they all stood there just like with the professional guy that does it for a living from open air campaigners. I sat there and it's just simply talking to somebody is all it was. And then I actually had some that want to stick around and talk to me. All I did was ask, does anybody got any questions? Yeah, I do. So can you stick around? Sure. Guys, there was nothing improper about this. There was not getting in anybody's faces about this. It was the neatest thing I've ever seen when it comes to telling people about Jesus. Do you remember? This is 3 weeks ago. How I said how hard it is for people to hear the gospel? What must a person go through to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ today? Talk to me. Okay? In other words, you got to set the alarm to get up early on a Sunday morning. Then you got to get up. And by the way, this isn't with anybody's real nudging, nobody's really urging you. You got to somehow get enough unction within yourself to get up out of bed and get your family dressed and bring them to this building. In other words, these folks don't even believe they need the gospel. Why am I going to get up and interrupt my Sunday morning to go hear it? We make it so difficult for people to hear the gospel. Well, we're going to teach it in this building way over here, 10 miles from where you live, and it's only at 10:30 on Sunday morning, and if you don't come, you missed it. Right? And even then, most churches, they don't hear it. Man, I got a chance. I know I saw at least 100 college students who will never walk into a church by an act of their own will. Listen to every word of the gospel and the plan of salvation. Listen to every word. And I was amazed. I was amazed. I got a chance to witness for Christ verbally to more people last Monday than more people than I would have in 3 months. How long were we out there, Ron? 4 hours? 5 hours? Yeah. The reason I put this up here, where are you going to go fishing? I could stand here and I'm blue in my face and preach the gospel. And then just go, nobody came. Nobody listened. Oh yeah, they listened. They've just already received it. And wouldn't it be stupid if I went fishing and somebody says, "Why are you fishing here?" "Oh, I just enjoy casting." Why? Because I know there's no fish out there. But the Bible says that I'm supposed to fish. Then the third, we'll invite him to come play Ultimate Frisbee. If you want to know, up here in this left-hand corner, that's me and Tim going after a Frisbee. Yeah. That's me and Tim right there. We're going after it. I'm the good-looking one. I think I'm the one in the green and Tim's the one in the blue. I think that's who it is. And but that could be Mindy right there, though. She does that. She gets out there and runs after it. But then we're going to play Frisbee, like we're going to do this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Then fourthly, maybe we'll invite them to go hiking or camping with us. We'll invite people. You see, what you're doing is, with every one of these steps, you're getting to know people just a little bit more, and you're loving on them. And then fifthly, tomorrow night, I did this kind of last minute. I started publicizing it last week. But I'll tell you, I've already got people coming. Can you believe this? I've already got people coming outside the church to one of these trainings tomorrow. So we're calling it an introduction to mentoring. It doesn't cost anything, and you're not making any obligation to come. What you're doing either tomorrow at 10 or tomorrow at 6:30, all you're doing is you're coming to check out what is mentoring, how does it happen. No obligation to you. You're not making a commitment by coming. And if you can't come this time, in 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing it again. What I'm going to be doing is forming a coaching group. And I'm going to be sending an invitation to some of you to be a part of my online coaching group on Facebook. And I'm going to form 2 coaching groups. The coaching group online, because I got people that are outside of Coeur d'Alene that are interested in mentoring, and but they're interested in the coaching, but they can't come to Coeur d'Alene. They live too far away. And I'm going to be doing a live coaching class here about every 2 weeks this summer. And it's not to point at you and say, "You're not mentoring anybody yet." What you want to come, if you just want to come and check it out and learn what it is, I'm going to tell you something, guys. Can I just be, unless you've ever been mentored before, this is not going to be comfortable for you. Don't wait until you go, "I think I need this," because you need this. You either need it or think of your children, or your children need it. You either need it or people that need Christ need it. I thought of the slogan on top. The life you change could be your own. Because I think the person that's going to be blessed in this process is the mentor. Then today, church Frisbee. We're church picnic and Frisbee, Ultimate Frisbee. 3 p.m. we're going to have that. And that is Corbin Park, by the way. It's the most beautiful place to see the Spokane River around. 3 o'clock today is Ultimate Frisbee. The directions are in your bulletin. 5 o'clock, picnic dinner. Just bring what you want. I think we're going to get some fried chicken and some potato salad, and we're just going to eat at 5. And bring a friend if you'd like. Oh, that's the last one. Guys, I look at spiritual warfare from a very practical thing. I don't look at it being a spooky thing. I don't look at a demon with horns and pitchforks. I see a demon in a beautiful black case. That's keeping our minds from resting. I see it in a father who's unwilling to say, "I need the Spirit to be the spiritual leader of my home." I see it as a mother who's fighting with her husband. I see it as children who are disobedient. I see it as churches who aren't making the gospel central. I see spiritual warfare in such a way that I think it's winnable. And don't I wish that, in other words, there's some churches, "Let's go pray and have the prayer walk." Well, you're going to have the prayer walk, that's good. And I'm all for praying. Praying is essential and praying is first. But after you clear the field of the demons, Then you've got to come in to step into the space you've created and present the gospel. And you don't dress people down with it. They come to you and they go, all right. They're basically saying, tell me. And you tell them. Then you start inviting them to church, and you start asking them about their lives, and you invite them to go hiking with you, or to go camping with you, or to go play Frisbee on a Sunday afternoon. You pay attention to them, and you see, because I see it being very demonic that we leave this place and never think of the gospel again. I see that as being spiritual warfare. When you think of church as just being a place that you go to on Sunday, I see that as demonic. And those are the spirits of complacency that we need to deal with in our own lives. Not that we set up a system of works, but what we have to do, guys, is we have to put ourselves in position for the Spirit to move in this culture. And if coming into this building at 10:30 on Sunday morning, we were seeing people come to Christ that needs to come to Christ, I would say, oh, this is baloney, because we see 40 people a week coming to Christ on Sunday morning. But I don't see that in any of the churches. So what does that tell me? That I've got to take the gospel to where Jesus took it. Oh, you remember, this is 4 weeks ago. Where did Jesus teach? Streets, mountains. Yeah. And all we need to do is do what Jesus did. Okay? Guys, thank you for coming this morning. Let's pray. You know, Father, I'm thankful for you. Thank you so much for loving us. Thank you so much for doing great and glorious things to us. Father, thank you so much for your word. We're not going to conform any longer to the image of this world. But we're going to have you transform us by the renewing of our minds. And right now, Father, our minds need to be stayed on you. And we leave this building, Father, we don't just leave here thinking about lunch. We leave here thinking about who people at lunch don't know Jesus. And how can we take this gospel to them? Father, this summer, we're just going to put families first. And we're going to go to places where families hang out. And we're going to be Christ in the world. We're not going to be of the world. But you know, God, we're going to start being in it in a purposeful way. We want to learn how to share your good news in ways that are attractive to people, to where they will want to come and listen. That's what I saw this week. I saw college students who at one time were just thinking about the next class or thinking about lunch, just reworked their entire day to stop and listen to the gospel, and they did it voluntarily. No one coerced them. Father, teach us the power of your gospel to draw people, and the power of your Spirit to hold people, and the power of your love to change people. Just get us out there, Father. May we shine like lights everywhere we go, so that people will know that you are God, and that they may give their lives fully and wholly to you. Thank you, Father, for who you are and who you've made us to be. It's in the precious name of Jesus we pray. Amen.